This is The Comics Alternative, episode 193, recording live from HeroesCon 2016. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Comics Alternative. I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy, and we're two guys with PhDs talking about comics.
And on this week's episode, Andy and I are going to share some of the recordings that we made while we were at HeroesCon last weekend. But before we get to that, we want to let all of you guys know that this episode of The Comics Alternative is brought to you by the great folks at Discount Comic Book Service. Go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. There, you're going to find all DC, Marvel, Image, and Dark Horse titles at 40% off of the cover price if you pre-order. For all of the other publishers, you'll find that those discounts are 20 to 35% off cover price. And every single month, you're going to find some unbelievable specials. Sometimes those specials will be at 45% off cover price, sometimes at 50% off cover, but often you can find discounts that are a lot more impressive than that.
That's right, and this month, as in every month, DCB Service offers a load of bundles in which you can take advantage of ordering multiple comics from the same publisher for a deeper discount than you would get if you bought those comics individually. In this month, they have 45 and 50% off bundles from Marvel, several bundles from DC, including Vertigo, and Valiant.
That's right. You can always find great bundles and other such specials at Discount Comic Book Service. So go to their website, dcbservice.com, for all of your comics pre-ordering needs. And after you do get your comics there, please send them an email and tell them that the two guys with PhDs sent you.
That's right.
So, Andy, as we've been teasing over the past couple of weeks, you and I went to HeroesCon 2016 in Charlotte, North Carolina, of course, and we had a table there like we did last year.
That's right. And we got to record some interviews with a bunch of different guests. We got to talk to people off mic about doing some potential interviews, and we recorded for about 30 minutes every day, right?
Right, and that's what we want to let you guys listen to for this week's regular episode is, Andy and I recorded on Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday of the con. And most of the times, I think Friday and Sunday we recorded toward the end of the day. Saturday we did it a little earlier. So sometimes we're talking about what is memorable about the day, and sometimes, as on Sunday's segment, we discussed what really stood out for us for the entire con. So, we talk about a little of this, a little of that. And in fact, there were a couple of occasions where people stopped by as we were recording and talked with us, and we even brought one or two on mic.
Yeah, that's right. And we've done that also in previous years, so that's a kind of common thing we now do on these con episodes.
That's right. Well, let's go ahead and let people listen to this. Now, it's going to sound as if we're starting off this segment. When we recorded these at the con, we didn't think about the need for the sponsor bit at the very beginning and then the contact information at the end. So just, the core of the show is us recording on the floor at HeroesCon.
That's right.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative. I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy, and we're two guys with PhDs talking about comics.
And on this week's episode, Andy and I are doing the recording from the floor of HeroesCon. It's HeroesCon 2016. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we have a table at in Artist Alley 105. And we're kind of far back. We don't get the kind of traffic like we did last year.
No, that's true. Last year we were kind of on
on a nice aisle that was right in front of tables where people could sit down, and so we just got a lot of kind of people coming by that were curious about what was going on over here and stopped by to ask. So yeah, I've talked to a few people, some who are listeners, some who are just new to it.
And just interested in what we were about.
Yeah.
Saw the PhD thing.
Curious about that.
Yeah. I've talked with a couple of people. Oh, that reminds me. While you were gone at one point, someone from Sumter, Nick, came by.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about? He said that he's worked with you on that council where you do the event each year.
Oh, yeah.
He was asking about you.
Oh, well, I hope I get to see him. Nick's a neat guy. He's a retired military, and he has an amazing original art collection.
Oh, wow.
He also has a copy of the Something of Obadiah Old Duck. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Which is considered to be the first American comic book from, 19th century.
He has what now?
He has a copy of it. Which one of the, there are only a handful of copies of this book.
Oh my God.
In the world.
So he's not just a collector. He's like a diehard.
Yeah, he's got a museum.
Jeez. Literally, he has a museum.
Yeah. Well, it seems like. I mean, he's got some really great stuff. And when we do the Sumter show, well, the first year we did it, he kind of didn't donate, but brought a lot of, had on display a lot of his original art, and he just has incredible stuff. So.
Does he have like museum quality and archival quality casings?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, anyway, he stopped by.
Oh, well, I'm sorry I missed him, but I'll hope to see him again.
Yeah, and as Andy mentioned, this year we're not where we were, where we had a lot of traffic. I mean, we've had a lot of people come by, and it's Friday. Saturday is going to be a lot busier. But now, ironically, last year we had nothing but our attractive personas to sell.
Yeah.
This year, though, we have T-shirts to sell, but we just don't have the kind of crowd that we did last year.
No, that's true. But the T-shirts are going to be a long-going thing, right? That we do, or
I guess so. Yeah, I was hoping that I wouldn't be taking many. Well, I knew I'd be taking them, but it'd be nice if I didn't take many back with me. But for those of our listeners who are interested, you can contact us. Go to our contact page, and if you want a T-shirt. Actually, we have 3 kind of T-shirts that we printed up in time for HeroesCon. As many of you know who. Because we mentioned this a couple of times on the show in the past, we've recently gotten a brand new logo designed by a friend of the show, Andy Hirsch, who was here.
Yeah, I haven't
this
talked to him yet. I need to do that.
And it's a very attractive new logo. If you haven't seen it, it is a mortarboard with comic panels in color on top. So it looks really good. And so we have new business cards, but more importantly, we have T-shirts with the new design, both 4-color and single-colored versions. We also have another T-shirt designed by Craig Yo, another friend of the show, who did a very interesting, very Craig Yo-ish, I guess we could say, illustration for us that definitely says, literally, the comics alternative, but it also says, in many ways, Craig Yo. So we have these T-shirts for sale, and we hope we can sell maybe a couple while we're here this weekend. But if you guys are interested in getting your official Comics Alternative T-shirt, then get in touch with us. We will hook you up.
Yeah. So how has your show been so far?
So far it's been good, although I think I got off to kind of a tired start. Mm-hmm. Zoe and I got in later than I anticipated. Now, the door opened to everyone at 11 o'clock today, although they let VIP guests come in, or attendees with a VIP pass come in at 10:30. I was hoping to get here about 9 or 9:30. I didn't get here until about a little after 10. Mm-hmm. I was running late. I didn't prepare as much last night as I should have. Mm-hmm. And so I tried to make the haul from the parking lot over here in one trip.
Yeah.
And I was carrying too much, and I strained myself.
I can imagine how that would happen, and I was of course as always unavailable to help.
Well, you were your stuff was here, or your coffee cup was here when I got here,
so and I had to strain to get my coffee cup down here.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll know not to ask you for any help in bringing the boxes of crap.
No, I'll help. Take them to your car if you want on Sunday.
Now, I did have Zoe, my daughter, and for those who have been listening to the show know that last year Zoe helped out at our HeroesCon table. She's doing the exact same thing this year. In fact, just a second ago when we started to record, she was taking photos of us in action. Mm-hmm. So, if you want, if you really enjoy video podcasts, then you can listen to this, and when we post the pictures that Zoe just took, look at them really close up and move your screen around, and you can get the same feel.
I would suggest printing them up, cutting out holes where the mouths go, and then having your friends lip sync to us.
Yeah, okay. And in fact, you guys, if you do that, then take some video of it and then send it to us at 2guys@comicsalternative.com. So anyway, getting back to your question, it started off a little strained, literally, and I didn't feel like going about and walking as much as I have. I've spent a lot of time at the table, but I have made excursions to get a few things signed, to pick up some books and whatnot. It's been kind of a lower key first day than it was last year. How about yours?
Yeah, no, mine's been good. My usual approach to HeroesCon on Friday. Actually, mine started yesterday on Thursday because I like to come down Thursday since we have guest passes. We can come down Thursday while people are setting up. And a lot of the dealers get themselves set up right away because that's when the dealers make deals with each other, right? And so I would come down, and usually there's a handful of comic dealers that I know, right? That I know have stuff that I'm looking for. That have cheap Golden Age comics and weird stuff for $2 to $5. And so I picked up some stuff last night, and then got in early this morning at about 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Bought some more stuff. And then kind of stopped buying old comics at that point for a while, but then went around to different creators and talked to them, and got some of their stuff as well.
Yeah. And when you go around to these dealers that you say you go to every year, do they know you? Like when you walk up, do they say, "God, it's the Kunkka guy"?
No, not at all. No, I try to be as unfriendly as possible because I don't want to get into a relationship.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
I can see that.
No, but like there's one place that I always like to go to, and I don't know how they do it, but they'll put out boxes and boxes of disorganized $2 comics, but it's all old stuff. It's not not any recent stuff in there. And so I got to that table this morning, and the woman there said, "Look, you're the first person to get into these boxes." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm going to town here," and I did.
What'd you find?
I found as people who probably listen to the podcast may know, I'm always looking for issues of Black Hawk. Mm-hmm. So I've gotten a lot of issues that I didn't have and didn't pay more than $5 a piece for them, which is really good because at the point I'm at in that collection, it's only pretty early stuff that I don't have. So I got a lot of that stuff. I got some weird stuff that I like sharing with friend of the show, Greg Yo. Mm-hmm. To show him some of that, and I don't know what else. Oh, and then one of the other areas I collect is the DC 100-page Super Spectaculars.
Oh yeah,
that used to be the name of my blog when I had that, and when I was a kid, those were the comics I loved because you got like a history lesson of DC Comics in every issue. And so I found actually a lot of the ones I don't have. So that was also successful. And again, not paying more than $5 a piece for them.
Oh, that's cool. I wish, I used to have a lot of those 100-page spectacular when growing up, but I got rid of mine, unfortunately. Yeah. So when I went off to college, or right after I went off to college, I guess, needing the money.
The other highlight of my day was I got a Blackhawk sketch for my Blackhawk sketchbook from Mike Grell, who's here, and I got a chance to talk to him. And now I've probably mentioned Mike Grell a couple times on the podcast. When I was a kid, Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes was my favorite comic, and he was the artist on it. And he was one of the first artists I was able ever to identify, to say, I recognize this style, so that I don't even have to look at the credits to know it's him. And so I got a chance to tell him that. I got a chance to talk to him about John Sable Freelance, which is probably one of my favorite series of all time, and a series in which I had a couple letters published, so I got to talk to him about those sorts of things. And it was really great to get a chance to meet him. I would put, if I had to put together a bucket list of creators that I would want to meet someday or want to get a sketch from or whatever, he's at the top, so I was really happy for that.
How old is he now?
I'm not sure, because we were talking, and he started talking, because one of the stories that he did I really liked from John Sable Freelance was called MIA, and it was about the Vietnam War. And he talked to me about his experience in Vietnam. So he's of that generation, at least,
Wow. You were talking about, standout moments so far this first day. Mm-hmm. One of the things I forgot, though, occurred right before we started to record, where we had that near-death experience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm referring to is a couple of tables down from us, there is, I guess they're artists, I'm not sure, but they have this really tall wall that looks to be about 3 tiers high. Mm-hmm. And Andy was talking to me, you were telling me about your house situation and talking to Jen about something. And I was looking at this wall, and I saw it start to move a little, and I thought, okay, well, maybe it's like some fan or something started up. Next thing I know, it starts to slowly move toward us, and the people who are sitting next to us were right under the wall. Now, it wouldn't have killed them, but, these are what is cardboard? What kind of material is this?
Yeah.
It was a surprise, let's just say. Yeah. And so, it just came down, and we were able to catch it. But I guess that is one of the more exciting things that happened today.
Well, there's been a lot of talk, online on the kind of, comics discussion areas about this kind of phenomenon in
falling walls.
Not falling walls so much as enormous displays that really aren't appropriate for the kind of booths people have set up and stuff, and that I'd have to say, I'm not going to name any names, that is too high.
Yeah.
And they should knock it down about a third, and they wouldn't have that problem. But it is an issue, and you can kind of look around and see there are a lot of in order to get kind of attention in this Artist Alley area, people have to put up pretty big displays.
Yeah, and these displays are ones that the tablers themselves put up, because if you were asking people connected to the convention center to do something like that, they wouldn't, because it's against the regulations.
Right.
So they can get away with doing that themselves if no one calls them on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, We have a display up, and ours is manageable, and it's not going to fall over.
And it was assisted and helped by someone from the show. So
that's right.
Who were
going to charge us, and they still could come over and say, "You owe us a few bucks," but I'm hoping that they forget.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah. So So what Andy and I are going to be doing for this week's episode is recording on the floor or from the floor every day of the con, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. and then put that up as our week's episode. So, as you're listening to this, well, HeroesCon 2016 has come and gone, but as we're recording this, we're relatively fresh into the con, the very first day.
I don't feel fresh.
Yeah, I feel tired.
I'm tired too. It always takes me, no matter what, when I'm staying in a hotel, it always takes me a night or two to get used to not being in my own bed that is shaped to conform to my body. And so I sleep fitfully the first couple nights, and then it's tough to catch up.
Well, I've been sleeping in a bed that's not my own for the past week and a half, so I'm waking up with backaches all the time now. I'm getting to where I'm used to it.
Yeah, I have the issue too, where I have there's a construction site right outside my window with actually two construction sites. Each one has one of those giant cranes working on it, and I'm afraid of heights anyway, but I also have, I don't know what it is, kind of a like sympathetic physical reaction when I see somebody up high. It also makes me nervous, and actually physically, like, I have a physical reaction to it.
Now, you're staying at the Westin, which is the hotel that most people who are here at the con, I guess, are staying. That's the main hotel?
Yes.
Yes. And, okay, so tell us tell our listeners what you were telling me earlier, that, you and I met up here when we were setting up the table yesterday afternoon, but then there was an event last evening to kind of kick off the con.
Yeah, so Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick and Fabio Ba and Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon. I knew I was going to do that. So the whole Casanova team is here, and then and Kelly Sue and Valentin Delandro, who draws Bitch Planet. They're all here, and they had a fundraiser for organizations that are working with LGBTQ awareness in North Carolina, especially with the recent passage of HB2, and
that's the law that the state this past spring instituted in reaction to what Charlotte.
Yeah, what Charlotte, where we are, did about passing laws about access to bathrooms and so on, and so that was at the Buffalo Wild Wings, that is in the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and so some friends of mine and I went there to go to it. We got there about 15 minutes after it started, and it was already filled up. So we kind of were there on the periphery, and I did buy a T-shirt that was part of the fundraiser with the non-compliance logo from Bitch Planet, and so we didn't get into the party itself, but we did get to participate a little bit, and then several other people joined us, and that was it. So I didn't get a chance to go into that party. From what I heard from other people, they went later at like about 9 o'clock, and it had thinned out by then.
So when you got there and you couldn't get in, were you like pressing your face up against the window, metaphorically speaking, looking really sad?
No, I walked in, I looked around. I had already gotten a chance to see Kelly Sue and Matt in the lobby of the hotel, so we talked there for a little bit anyway. So it wasn't. I didn't feel like I was necessarily missing out on a lot, but it looked like a good time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, after we set up here, I went home and chilled out.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. Along with my daughter Zoe, who is helping out here at the con at
just
the table.
Took some great pictures.
That's right.
Several with like kind of Batman 66 angles, it looked like.
Yeah, I was noticing that out of the corner of my eye. So now we are over on the side where there's, as we mentioned earlier, that there's not that much traffic. Actually, we're right beside a friend of the show, Gabe Dunstan, who is here, and he has, among other things, the second book of Purgatory Pub, and he just recently finished that earlier this year. He was doing a Kickstarter on that, and Andy, you and I discussed the first Purgatory Pub. What was it, 2.5 years ago, I guess? Maybe 3 almost, when that came out. So he's here to one side of us, and then we have an artist, and Mike, what is your last name?
Phillips.
Mike Phillips, who is here on the other side, and he has quite an elaborate layout. He's got a much more manageable backdrop that's not going to fall over. And he was telling me earlier that he is working on a title that he's hoping to get a publisher on. So, yeah, we're in Artist Alley and surrounded by artists, even though we're not artists ourselves, but we talk about it.
Yeah, I don't see a big podcast presence here as far as booths are concerned as there has been in the past. I mean, and even there'd even been times before we started tabling last year where HeroesCon set up a podcast alley where they'd have, kind of like where we are, 4 or 5 tables in a row that were all podcasts.
So it's like a ghetto within the alley.
Yeah. But I don't see a lot of other podcasts around here.
No, in fact, I have not yet. Now, granted, I haven't walked around as extensively as I wanted to today, but I have not seen any other tables that have a podcast like I did last year. There were a few. In fact, we were sitting beside one last year. Some other podcast. It wasn't necessarily a comics podcast. I think it was more generally pop culture. Okay, well, they're putting the top tier of the wall back up. The aforementioned death wall.
Sorry to our listeners if I was I'm suddenly distracted because that giant wall is being reassembled and it shouldn't be.
Yeah. So if all of a sudden, the sound should go dead and you don't hear us for a while, that's why. It's the wall has fallen over.
Yeah, because this is going out live.
And this is... lately we've been doing other episodes where potential danger is involved because we did a recording. Our Patreon supporters know this, that we've recorded special Patreon supplements while you were driving in the car.
That's true. Maybe we should continue increasing the risk.
Extreme podcasting. I
don't know what my version of extreme podcasting would be though, because I get tired pretty easily. So it would be, and I'm quite risk averse. So I don't know what it would be walking across the street.
Well, I could take my recording equipment out with me when I go running for a really long time, like over a weekend, and I can be very winded. And so there's always the possibility of exhaustion and possible heart attack.
Yeah.
So, if I really push myself. So, something to think about. But anyway, I think this being the first day, I feel pretty good about it. I wish I'd felt like doing more, but, I guess it's like I feel many times I have these, these plans. Oh, I want to go see this. I want to get that signed. I want to go do this. And I only do a fraction of what I intend to do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I got pretty close to getting everything signed that I wanted signed this weekend. So I didn't bring, every year I bring less and less because I realize that it's, it's not always the best use of my time to keep going back to the hotel room and grabbing more stuff or trying to lug around a heavy bag full of stuff to get signed. So, I've gotten, mainly what I do is use it as a kind of conversation starter, with creators that I'm interested in talking to. So I've done that. I've done a lot of that today and talked to people about the podcast. So that's been good. I also got a chance actually to talk to Dustin Harbin because his book Diary Comics, Koyama Press, has given me permission to use an image from that for the autobiographical comics book, and I had emailed him about it too, and he was really great. I mean, he was really cool about it. He was really happy that that his stuff's going to be in that book, and I got a copy of his newest diary collection.
Oh, okay. Oh, I definitely have to go over there and check it out then.
Yeah, check it out. and so I'm looking forward to reading that as well.
Now, he is, if I'm not mistaken, a native Charlottean as well.
Yeah,
right?
he in fact used to work for Heroes Aren't Hard to Find, and was a kind of staple of this convention as one of the organizers for years.
Yeah. So, yeah, I saw him. I met him here last year, and I also saw him at, I think it was SPX last year. But I saw him from a distance here. I haven't had the chance to go up to see him. But that new collection of the diary...
Yeah, I mean, it's just a mini comic.
Mini comic,
yeah.
not that big book.
No.
That we discussed on the show, one of our shows last year.
Right.
When we did that Koyama Press spotlight. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that I did get to sign some stuff, but I'm pacing myself. There are other things that I'm going to take. I have a couple of Ryan Brown stuff. Or books that I need to take over there, but I haven't seen him yet. One of the things I have not done yet today is interview anyone from the floor.
Right.
I just thought, this being the first day, I wanted to get a lay of the land and, just do that on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, tomorrow is usually a tough day to do that, too. Sunday's usually a better day.
Yeah.
Especially towards the afternoon, things start to wind down. But it's a good show. I love coming to this show every year, and it just keeps continuing to come and developing relationships with people who are here. Creators and dealers who are here every year it's a good thing. And so there's a lot of people that I just know from this show. That I see only at this show every year.
Yeah, and it's also a great opportunity for us, not just to interview people for, about 10 or 15 minutes while we're here, but to set up interview possibilities for the future, because it was here last year that we talked to Jeremy Hahn about having him and Jason Hurley on when the first issue of The Beauty came out.
Yeah.
So we set that up here. And we're starting to do some of that here this year as well.
Yeah.
So, it's a great way not only to make relationships, but to plan for future episodes of the podcast. So that's really good. Now, you and I are going to be on a panel on Sunday.
That's right.
And that's going to be, at 2:30?
Yeah.
Yes. So that should be interesting. And this is called, The Canon Reloaded?
Yeah.
I think. It's like The Canon Reloaded and then something, but I'm forgetting what that last thing is.
Yeah.
But this is something that Andy, Mansell, he put together a few years ago. He was telling me a similar panel on a comics canon, the question of a comics canon. Mm-hmm. And so he wanted to revisit that topic again, thus the title, The Canon Reloaded.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why he's bringing it back is because in the last 2 years worth of teaching comics panels that we've done, that the question of canon has come up again and again, and so he feels like it's a pertinent topic that people are interested in discussing. So I'll be interested in seeing how that goes. Now that panel's going to have you and me, Craig Fisher, Craig Yo, Tom Heintjes, and Mark, and now I can't remember Mark's last name, who's a local librarian.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember the name either. I just remember him being a librarian. Mm-hmm. So that should be a fun panel.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And, we all, we know how Craig is, but it should be interesting to be on a panel with Craig.
Yeah. Craig Yo.
Craig Yo, yes. Yeah. Not Craig Fisher.
we know how
he is, yeah, but, we don't care about that. It's we do Craig Fisher and Yo.
Yeah.
So, we have, many events, many things going on here, and Andy and I will turn our microphones back on Saturday toward the end of the day, tomorrow, and tell you how our second day of the con went, and then we'll do the same thing on Sunday afternoon.
Sounds good.
So we'll talk to you guys in a little bit, at least as you're listening to it.
Yep. See you later.
Okay, here we are, day 2 of HeroesCon 2016. We're actually recording this earlier in the day than we had originally thought. It's, about 12:30, almost 1 o'clock, I guess, now. But, Andy, you said that there are a lot of panels that you plan on going to this afternoon, so you may be booked solid, and we decided we wanted to do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. at 2:30 today is the Milk-Fed Criminal Masterminds panel with Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick, plus, the whole Casanova team's here, the whole Bitch Planet team's here, so I want to go to that. I actually kind of recently watched on YouTube the Milk-Fed panel from last year, and it looked like it was really a good time and a lot of fun, and I regret not having gone to it last year, so this year I want to make sure I catch that.
I'm sure it's going to be a big crowd.
Yeah.
Go through all of the aisles.
So they were giving away stuff too, like they would have like trivia contests based on their various books. I don't think I would do so hot on that trivia contest, but be curious to see what they're giving away.
What were they giving away last year?
Or if you just want to pay
Like swag from the company and books and stuff. They also had Bill Sienkiewicz dropped in on the panel, and they announced that he and Kelly Sue DeConnick were going to do a book together. Okay. I don't know what how far down the road that's going to be, but that sounds interesting.
And that panel's at 2:30. There's another panel at 2 that I may go to that I'm sure will not be near as densely attended.
Or rollicking?
Yeah, exactly.
And what's that?
On romance comics.
Oh, yeah.
So
you never know.
You never know. It's just, well, I guess it's similar to late this morning. There was a panel for Steranko, and it had a lot of people. Yet I was at a panel with Evan Dorkin and Sarah Dyer. Not that many people. So, but that was fine. It was more intimate.
Yeah.
More conversational.
This was just
I'm be curious to hear your report on the romance comics panel, because Craig Yo's on that, right?
Right.
And
I think he's heading that one up.
Yeah. When I got here on Thursday afternoon, when everybody was setting up. One of the things that goes on is people who can get in early get to set up, also do some shopping and make some deals. And so I saw Craig. I ran into Craig as he was making some purchases, and he pulled out this quality comics romance comic that he picked up because he was so excited about it, because he thought at least 3 stories that would fit into Weird Love.
Oh.
And they definitely met the criteria.
How so?
Well, one was about a ventriloquist.
Okay, right there. Say no more.
And one was about bigotry. But it was basically the plot was that the man of the romantic relationship went to a different church from the family of the woman, and so he had to kind of prove himself. I think he ends up saving somebody's life or something to prove that he's worthy of their daughter. And so it's not racial bigotry, it's not sexual, based on sexuality or anything like that. It's just religious bigotry, and it didn't even seem like it, and pretty firmly like within Christianity, not even dwelling on.
That scarily sounds a lot like about my relationship with my high school sweetheart. Because I'm serious. I was the subject of Christian religious bigotry. I grew up Methodist, and I was dating someone in high school, someone who I guess you could call non-denominational, and her father was a minister. And at one point, he forbid her to see me.
Wow.
And he told me to my face, because I was Methodist, I wasn't Christian enough.
Wow.
Now, we saw each other secretly whenever we could. But again, it's kind of a young high school age, secret-y kind of relationship. So it's not like we did anything too nefarious. But, I'm sorry, this is taking kind of a negative turn now. I didn't mean to go that direction, but yes, there is such thing as
that sounds like
Christian Protestant bigotry.
You should make your own romance comic about that experience.
Either it would open up those old wounds or help me to heal them. I'm not sure which.
Yeah.
So now today we're looking at here, and we have a much bigger crowd. It's Saturday, which is the busiest day here at HeroesCon. A lot of people walking by the table. As we mentioned yesterday, we're not at a space on the convention floor that gets the most traffic.
No.
We've had a lot of solid strollers come by.
Yeah.
In fact, right before we started recording, there was a mother who talked to us. She hadn't heard about our podcast, but she was interested in what we were doing. So, she was asking us questions about the podcast and, the two guys with PhD thing. But then she literally shared with us some work that she does in comics. And so she had, what was the title of the comic she was working on?
I don't know if we should probably say, since
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
it hasn't come out yet, but or may not come out. But it seemed interesting, a good way to use comics educationally
Exactly.
to teach self-esteem and things like that. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I wonder how much that sort of thing happens here, of people bringing their projects. I mean, you probably can imagine budding artists bringing their portfolios to artists and other creators to get feedback on it, but how many come with like something like that, which was basically a pitch.
Right, it was. And it looked like she'd been working on it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and we've had a couple people today at least, since I've been at the table, who listened to the podcast, who came by and said, "Hey, so that's cool."
Yeah. I'm always happy to see those people, but it is tough to get around today. I mean, I'm sitting down here at the booth when I'd probably normally be walking around, just because didn't want to keep fighting through the crowds.
Yeah, it's getting thick in places.
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes.
But I think I'm probably done buying comics for the time being. I might tomorrow wait to see if some the dealers I've been keeping my eye on lower their prices or something for the last day, as can sometimes happen. But otherwise, I'm probably done spending money for a while.
Yeah,
Except on food.
Yeah, I may go out and get a couple of other things. I found a few things yesterday, a couple things this morning, so we'll see. Although, it'd be nice if we made a little money here. We have not sold one T-shirt, which in many ways doesn't surprise me. I didn't.
Yeah.
I just assumed that we wouldn't, because unless someone listened to the podcast and was a big fan of the podcast, who would buy the T-shirt?
Right.
But you never know. We may get a really big fan and say, "Oh, I love you guys, listen to you every week. Oh, I want to get a T-shirt." But that person has not come by yet.
But I mean, the T-shirts are at least a good kind of branding opportunity that we can put on display here at the table, so people see the new logo that Andy Hirsch did and recognize it, and maybe pick up on the podcast later on.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, Andy Hirsch is several rows over, and I told him this morning, if people like his art and they want to get more of it and they want to wear it, then he can send them over here.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I noticed today, and not only do we have a bigger crowd, but a lot more cosplaying.
Oh yeah. Today's the big cosplay day, and it's very often when after HeroesCon's over, I go online and look at the different picture sets that people post from HeroesCon, and it always strikes me as interesting that I see some amazing costumes in those pictures that I never saw while I was on the floor, because it seems like a lot of the cosplay stuff takes place well within that kind of front entrance area, where they stop, people get to take pictures of them, and they don't actually circulate around the convention center. And so I find that interesting, because I'll see like an amazing costume, and I'm like, wow, I would have liked to have gotten a picture of that. Now, I did, but I don't take very many pictures of cosplayers. But I did take one picture today because there was a guy dressed as the Golden Age vigilante. You know the character I'm talking about? He appeared in Action Comics. He's in the Seven Soldiers of Victory.
Oh.
He's a cowboy hero. He rode a motorcycle, but he just wears a red bandana, cowboy hat, a blue shirt, and white pants, and then had guns. But I always find it cool to see people take on those kind of more obscure Golden Age characters. I also saw, and I wish I could have gotten a picture of this, the original Mahunkel Red Tornado from the old Justice League and All-American Comics, or Justice Society, excuse me, in All-American Comics. So that was pretty cool. Yeah. Had the pot on the head and everything.
I have noticed that going to the panel when I was going up the front entrance, I noticed a lot of people in cosplay, and that's where they were having their pictures taken.
Right.
So, quite a bit more space for them to do so. So you're right. I mean, if I had not headed out there's a lot of cosplaying that I wouldn't have seen. Another thing I noted yesterday or last night after I got home, and I was posting some of our photos that actually my daughter Zoe took of us when we were recording. I was posting some of our images on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I did a search on some of those platforms like Facebook and Instagram, hashtag HeroesCon 2016. Yeah. And for instance, on Instagram, I looked at the pictures that came up in that search, the most recent ones, the ones that went up, let's say, the second half of the day. The vast majority of those photos, those Instagram photos, were of cosplayers. I mean, there were some of others, kind of like what we were doing, someone at a table or someone getting their picture taken with, I saw someone getting their picture taken with Matt Fraction or other creators, but the vast majority are cosplayers. And so looking at those pictures, I would, if I didn't know anything about HeroesCon and I did a search on Instagram, saw those pictures, I would think that HeroesCon is very much like a Wizard World, which it's not by any stretch. Because that's what a lot of those kind of cons, Wizard World, Fan Expos, that's what they seem to be all about, or much about, is cosplaying. But there's just not near as much proportionately done here on cosplaying as in some of the others. But you wouldn't know that from the images on Instagram.
Yeah, well, it may be that the kind of cosplay culture has their own way they go about doing HeroesCon versus how we experience it, and so I'm curious to see. Saturday seems to be the day when the cosplayers come out, just for a day.
Yeah, and also cosplaying by its very nature, I mean, it begs for photos. So that's what people are going to take photos of, instead of a table with someone sitting behind it signing something.
Yeah, sure.
Not as dynamic.
Right.
Not many poses you can strike that way. I guess you could, but... So, we're counting ourselves lucky today because we have not had any walls fall down anywhere near us. And I think you were particularly concerned.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to go again. Yeah. It's just a matter of time.
Just a matter of when. So we have to be ever vigilant.
That's true.
Yeah. So, okay, so you have this panel at 2:30 that you're going to with MilkFed. But there are at least one other panel you had mentioned. Yeah,
and so then at 4 o'clock, I think, is the Mike Grell panel, and the Mike Grell is the biggest draw for me here this year, since as I probably said in the last episode, one of my favorite artists growing up. But also he's a creator that seemed to develop more kind of mature work as I was growing up, so going from Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes to doing Warlord, and then getting in on the independent comic movement as it was starting, as he did Star Slayer for Pacific Comics and then John Sable freelance for First Comics. So he was among that group of small group of creators who made the move from mainstream superhero comics into that world of independent comics when it was still kind of nascent. And he went back to DC to do Green Arrow later, but nonetheless, like he was in a sense a kind of pioneer of that era.
Yeah. So now you had that, you were telling us yesterday about the illustration that he did for you. Of other people that you've gone around to get their signature, what are some of those memorable moments so far? Not necessarily maybe memorable moments, but fun times that you had or information that is worth sharing that you learned.
I'm not really sure. I sat and talked to Frank Barbary about The Revisionist, which I just got a copy of the other day and then read last night, and I really liked that. But we had a little chat about time travel and how time travel works, and I'd like to get a chance to talk to him about that book. If not here, then on an interview episode, because I'm a fan of time travel stories, but I'm also really curious about how writers decide on the kind of rules and architecture of the time travel, right? Like, so what can your hero do and can't do? Can they change history? Can they not change history? Things like that. And so I had just a brief conversation with him about that, and then I don't know, kind of wandered around and talked to a handful of people. I know you talked to Matt Kint for a little bit, right? And I did that too. I
talked to him for a little bit, outside of having him sign my books, and also Byrne, finally. I remembered my copy of Red-Handed, The Fine Art of Crime. He burnt the appropriate page, so that was good. But the only thing we really talked about outside of the signings is being on the podcast.
Okay.
But it kind of a general way. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Frank Barbary. We've only talked to him on the podcast at cons like this,
right?
And we keep saying, we need to have him over.
We do a podcast called The Comics Alternative. No, that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
This is what happens when you do a podcast during a con. I love your Supergirl costume. That's really great.
By the way, for those who are listening, because this is not a visual podcast, we have someone who is dressed as Supergirl who has come up and wants to learn more about the Comics Alternative.
And we can do our pitch.
Yeah.
So we have a podcast in which we talk about what we kind of broadly define as alternative comics, which is basically anything really outside of mainstream DC and Marvel superheroes.
Are you counting Image then?
Yep.
We talk about a lot of Image.
Yes. But what we discovered when we decided to do the podcast, that the niche we wanted to fill was that so many podcasts are just kind of talk about comics as if superhero comics were all a comics. And so we wanted to kind of steer away from that. And so we do a weekly review show. And then we also do a lot of interviews with creators. So I don't know if you're a fan of Image Comics. We talk about a lot of different Image creators. So.
And what's your name?
My name is Virginia.
Okay, Virginia. I feel like
I'm roped into the podcast.
like a comedian. It's like, what's your name, sweetheart? What's your name? So Virginia, you're dressed as Supergirl here, and do you have an interest in Image?
I do, yeah. My husband and I both really like Image. I think East of West is by them, and that's one of my favorites. Anything by Jonathan Hickman I'll buy, though.
Oh, great.
So.
He was our very first guest.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's not here this year, though, is he?
He was on the list and he canceled. So, he felt like he didn't have anything kind of new to promote this year, so he didn't come.
What other Image comics do you read?
See, now I'm drawing a blank because you asked me. But all the big ones, right? Like Sex Criminals, Saga.
Yeah, we've had them on. We had Matt Fraction. We've had Brian K. Vaughan.
That's right.
The best name in comics, honestly, that I think goes to him. Matt Fraction.
Yeah.
A good name.
Well, yeah, we love Image Comics, and we've mentioned this often on the show, that right now Image seems to be the new Vertigo, because I was a really, really, really big Vertigo fan. I mean, I like them still, but kind of stagnant over the past few years.
Yeah, and Image did that whole, Image Expo, they announced all those new things this year, and everyone is just super excited. I was more excited about that than, Rebirth, I don't care. I love Supergirl, but, I don't want another events comic. I want, a good story. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
By the way, do you watch Supergirl?
Do I watch? Oh, the show? Yeah, I'm not caught up, so no spoilers, please. But I do. I love it. I think it's going in a great direction.
You won't hear any spoilers from me because I haven't watched the first episode yet, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. I want to.
I watch it, but I'm not caught up either. But I really like it. I really wish more of like kind of the DC, not like movie universe, and their comics were more in that vein, right? Like bright, happy, positive stories, and not these kind of dark, grim, everybody's mopey superhero stories.
So definitely not Constantine.
I don't know. Constantine had fun though.
It did. It did.
Did you guys watch? Have you seen The Preacher? Have you talked about that at all?
Yeah, we did. I haven't watched it yet, but Derek watched it.
Old book, new show.
What do you think?
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't. I've read Preacher. I have a love-hate relationship with Preacher. In undergrad, I wrote about it because I was also a religion minor. So, there was a lot to glean from Preacher in that way. Yeah.
I've seen, I guess, the 3 episodes so far. I've seen all 3. I'm still waiting to be impressed. And I've said before on a podcast episode, actually it was one that only certain Patreon listeners, I guess, could hear, and we do have a Patreon campaign, by the way, that there seemed to be too much going on in the opening episodes, and tease it out over time. Don't throw everything in the mix with the first 1 or 2 episodes, and I think that's what's being done. I've read the series. I love Preacher, but I'm confused about what the hell's going on.
Okay. I think that's a complaint you could say about a lot of comics TV, though, like adaptations, since it's, they want to please everyone, or as many people as possible. With the hardcore fans, you want to get them in and, reference all the things they love, but you also want to please the new people by not giving too much away. Mm-hmm. So they're probably suffering from that kind of thing in Preacher.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Preacher, too, in that, though when I read it, about 16 years ago, I guess, or so, I had a weekend in which I was home alone, and I had just gotten all the trades, and I just sat down and read it straight through, and it was the worst time to be alone. It felt like I had gone through hell, and so I haven't gone back to it since.
Now, Virginia, you said that you were a religious studies minor?
Yes.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Columbia College in South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
It's a women's college.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good school.
Oh, us being in Charlotte and you saying that you minored in religious studies, I was going to ask if you went to UNC Charlotte in religious studies, because I went to UNCC and I took a lot of classes in their religious studies program. Really good.
I did not go there. I haven't been to that school, but I believe in being a lifelong learner, I guess,
But you went to school in the Carolinas?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Are you from Columbia?
No, I'm from Charleston.
Okay.
But I now live in Greenville, so I've been all over the place.
Well, Greenville has they have good comic shops. They have good comic shows too.
SC Comic-Con.
Yeah,
always.
Which is
I think the
nice
first week in April.
Yeah. I haven't gone yet. I really want to go, but everybody I know who goes loves it.
I volunteer there, and it was the first year I went this year, but I'm going to keep going. And I volunteer for Captain's Comics Expo in Charleston, South Carolina as well.
That's a really good store.
I love them.
Yep.
Mike is wonderful.
Yeah.
You want to give him a plug on the show?
Captain's Comics. There are 2 locations, one in West Ashley in Charleston, South Carolina, and the other is in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina.
Yep.
And Mike is the best guy ever to ask for recommendations. He knows so much, and he's also a good business owner. Yeah. So comics fans know that comic shops can be hit or miss. Sometimes you walk in there and it's dark and creepy and not welcoming to all kinds of people, but Mike's stores are welcome to everyone. They're wonderful. He's a great, awesome guy.
Yeah, whenever I go to Charleston, I try to hit that store because I really like it, and he does good events too. He'll have a lot of signings and stuff, and then they have that expo, which is a nice show.
Well, I have to leave you. I have to go shopping.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to.
Sorry about roping you into the podcast here, but now it'll go up Wednesday. You can listen to yourself on the show.
Awesome. I will do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Virginia /Supergirl.
Thanks.
Okay.
Well, that's cool. Maybe before we started to record today, I should have put up a third microphone in the event that something like this would happen.
Do you have a third microphone with you?
Yeah, I could put in an adapter and do that. So
that I'm always a little leery about roping people into the podcast. They're just walking by, but Virginia was game for a lot of discussion there.
Yeah, because you never know who you're going to be talking to.
Yeah,
it could get a little psychotic.
That's good.
Yeah. So thanks again to Virginia for talking to us and talking about South Carolina comic shops.
Yeah.
But what?
Yes.
And we have someone else who has come up.
So
and
here's this is our information. You can check us out. We're on iTunes, so you can check out episodes. We do interviews and weekly review shows.
Real quick, make a break it for me. Do you like Dan Slott? The writer?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I'll give you a shot anyway.
Oh.
Okay. Did he get us there?
Yeah, he was trying. He was trying to set us up. I mean, I don't know. I read Spider-Man once in a while.
Yeah. What were we just saying about you never know what you're going to get?
Yeah.
So apparently, when we turn on the microphone, or at least we look like we're recording, then we get more people to come up to the table.
Yeah. So my suggestion is we leave the microphones out, and then we pretend the whole time that we're recording.
Or, because they're expensive, let's get mock microphones, like cardboard ones or something. So we can always have them out, and whenever you and I are just talking, chit-chatting, we'll kind of lean down toward them, and people will think we're recording.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. But this happened last year when we broke the mics out on the floor. People paid attention to us in ways that they hadn't otherwise.
Yep.
So, and that's cool. We do encourage people to come up and talk to us, and we hope that they do more of that today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the crowd is still walking by. People are looking at us even more, so that's good. But we will be back on Sunday to record the last segment for this week's episode.
Yep.
Live from the floor of HeroesCon. So, Andy, have fun at your panel. I'll try to have fun at mine, and I'll talk with you tomorrow.
Yeah. See ya.
Here we are. Last day of HeroesCon. It's Sunday. It is late afternoon. We have less than 2 hours before it ends.
Yep. And things are winding down. Some artists and creators have left. Some a lot of tables are packing up as we speak. So it's coming around here.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I feel a little rushed in that we have less than 2 hours now, and you and I just spent the last seems like 2 hours at our panel.
Right. Yeah. It was. The panel started at 2:30 and got over a little after 4. So so it went on. It went on for a while, but it was a good panel. It was a fun discussion. The topic was the comics canon, and is there one, and should it exist, and so on. And you were recording it, right? So
yes, and I hope it turned out okay.
Yeah, if it turns out, then I don't want to rehash it all, so that our listeners can go ahead and listen to the panel. It was a lively discussion.
Yeah, but I think one thing to take, for me, the biggest takeaway of that panel was something that actually both you and I emphasized, and that is that whether we like it or not, there's going to be the canon. There's going to be a question, one way or another, and that's fine. That leads to a lot of great discussion and debate. So why the hell not?
Yeah, it leads to great discussion and debate, but as I also kind of say at the end of that panel, it leads to kind of endless discussion and debate, right? And so, at what point do we move on, especially moving on in terms of doing something different with that kind of academically oriented panel that comes at the end of the show?
Yeah. I'd like to do a panel at next year's HeroesCon. I just hope it's not on the last day.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah. So here we are, almost at the tail end of HeroesCon. What are some of the outstanding moments that you have to share?
I don't know. It's really been a blur. There's I've had some really good conversations with people. I've met a few people that I didn't know already, but it seems fewer than in previous years. I think in general, a lot of the conversations I've been having have been about how HeroesCon feels different this year. And a lot of creators are saying that it feels, a lot of creators, a lot of retailers, a lot of attendees that I've talked to anyway, are saying that it does feel different this year. Maybe there's a shift going on in the way attendees are spending money, or there's a shift going on in what people are looking for when they come to one of these shows. So it'll be curious to see in future years if we're in a trend with this kind of show.
Okay, so as you're talking to the people and they're talking about things are different, one, what kind of things are different? And then two, is this a difference for better or worse?
Well, again, that the last part depends on what you're looking at and what you're looking for. One of the big differences, as I mentioned, is people seem to be spending their money differently. So artists who do, for example, a lot of sketches in a weekend seem to be doing all right. That is a thing that people are looking for, that kind of individual signature piece of work that they can get. Some people have said, and I don't know how across the board this is, that original art sales aren't what they used to be. So artists who are selling their original pages don't seem to be doing as well. Again, a lot of this is anecdotal. And in general, we're seeing, and this came up in the panel that I went to with Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick and their Milk Fred Criminal Masterminds group, that and this is where the positive thing comes in, that there are more women going to comic conventions than men now demographically, and that has a lot to do with cosplay, and I think cosplay has made a big difference here as well. For us, I have a feeling like maybe location isn't so great for us this year.
It's not. But then again, we're at this convention for reasons that are very different from almost everyone else who's in Artist Alley. Yeah, I mean, even though technically we do have something to sell, our T-shirts, which we haven't sold one. But then again, I kind of expected that.
Right.
But it's more our presence and our visibility, and also we do this because we have a place to sit and we have home base, right? To bring our stuff, and I think that's worth it if nothing else. But our location, as we've mentioned before, wasn't as good as it was last year. But who knows? Maybe next year will be better. You never know about things like that, and I guess location is important.
I think one of the areas that we've been successful is doing that kind of name recognition and getting it out there, because just again, tell another anecdote. I was riding down the elevator this morning to check out, and a guy in the elevator said, "Have you gotten any good interviews this weekend?" Just kind of out of the blue. And I said, "Yeah, and we're going to be doing some today. Are you a listener?" He's like, "Yeah, I've been a listener for a long time," and that was great. To hear that feedback, and have it not be an awkward elevator encounter, but have that feedback is really good, and I think we've gotten a lot of that over the weekend. So I think that's a net positive.
Yeah, and I can't remember the number of people last year, and I didn't make a note of it at the time, who came up to us and said, "Yes, I know about the Comics Alternative. It's nice to finally meet you guys. I've listened to it for a while." My feeling is there's been more of that this year. I don't know if that's the case. It just feels that way. And I think because, we've been around for 1 year longer now than we were last year. And, we're coming up to our 4-year anniversary. And I do think that this makes me feel good. I hear a lot of podcasters who are just starting off. They've been around for less than a year. They would like it if they had instant recognition, right?
Right.
Oh, we have a large audience and they immediately flock to us. And that'd be great, but that's not going to happen in reality, unless you have a really big name, right? But it's a vegetable growth, right? It happens over time, and I think it accumulates. And so the shows we've done over time, and I find it interesting that the guy asked you about interviews. I mean, maybe that's what he takes away from the Comics Alternative. It's not so much our weekly review shows, which is the core of what we do, but the interviews that we do. And we've been doing a lot of interviews over the past couple of years, and I think that's where a lot of our growth has come from.
Yeah, and one of the other comments I often hear from listeners is, "I'm a little behind. I'm not caught up yet." But I think with the interviews, that may be some. Well, that response may be something to do with a kind of comic fans completist mentality, because what I think of with the interviews is that you don't necessarily have to listen to every single interview that we do. But that they're a kind of archive of these discussions with different creators that someone can dip into at any place that they want to. If they want to know more about so and so, they'll listen to that interview, and it'll kind of stand alone by itself. There isn't like a continuity.
Exactly. In fact, I think of our interviews as the best example of evergreen with our podcast, in that they will almost always be pertinent regardless of time. Not that our review shows aren't, but time is more of an issue, right? We try to talk about books right when they come out or soon after they come out, or maybe right before they're released.
Yeah.
So, there's, to a certain degree, a kind of datedness to those shows. And that's the nature of the podcast, right? But I think with the interviews, it's something that, like for instance, if someone is really getting into Brian K. Vaughan, or they're doing research on Brian K. Vaughan, they can turn back to our interview with him from a year and a half ago, and that's always going to be fresh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. And with the reviews, it's not completely time sensitive, but one of the motives for listening to a review show in the first place is to wonder, do I get this thing or not? And when we're talking about a periodical comic, it may be that the single issues are not easily available anymore. So there is a time. There may be something of a time factor to those that isn't necessarily there in an interview, even if we are interviewing a creator about a new or upcoming work.
Right. Yeah. I think that getting back to people coming up and talking with us, I think that's one of the things that makes me feel best about this year is the number of people and creators, artists, who have come up to us and say, "Hey, I listened to the podcast," and they don't do it say, "Hey, I listened to the podcast. Will you consider reviewing my book?" But just to tell us that they're in comics and they listen to us and they think that that's very important.
Yeah, in fact, I do like though that when the creators stop by and say, "Here's my comic. You want to take a look at it?" And we've gotten a few of those. And today, some creators, Jeremy Massey, as a writer and artist, dropped off his comic All My Ghosts, which comes from Alterna Press,
and I think we mentioned that on a preview show months back.
Yeah, and it was kickstarted, and so I sat here and I read about half of it while I was sitting at the booth, and it's a really nice looking book. So I'm grateful to have that kind of interaction too with listeners who hear what we do and come to us and say, look, I would like it if you took a look at what I'm working on.
Right, and then yesterday we had someone else do something very similar. Amanda Rachels, who is the artist of Flesh of White, came by, introduced herself, gave me a copy of her collection of the series Flesh of White. But she didn't come over necessarily to sell her work. She just wanted to say how much she loved the podcast. And she said, she and her husband listen to it every morning or most mornings. And, it's been a part of her life for a couple of years now. So, again, that makes us feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, I always like hearing that. And so it's interesting, too, to have that. We get that response at comic conventions. We get that response at academic conferences. So it's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, and I think it would go too far, though, if someone came up to us and said, I love your podcast. Every morning when I take a dump, it's the first thing I listen to. I don't need to necessarily know that.
Yeah.
But glad that it's a part of people's lives.
Yeah. So what are some highlights for you of the weekend?
Well, I think meeting a variety of people, that was a big plus. I had a really good time interviewing Miss Lasco Gross and
Kevin Colton.
Kevin Colton, when at the beginning today, and that will go up as a separate interview episode in the next week or so.
Good.
So that'll be separate. But I mean, that was a lot of fun interviewing them, because usually when we interview folks at cons like this, we're limited to about anywhere, 5-15 minutes, because we don't want to get in their way. So them taking the time to do that meant a lot. Another highlight for me is always meeting different people, that especially whose work that I've read or that we've discussed on the podcast in the past. And a standout there is Enrica Jang. I saw her a couple of hours ago. She is one of the creators behind a really recent adaptation of The Cask of Amontillado, Poe's famous short story, and then she did a spin-off of that, The House of Amontillado. Montresor. And, she responded to me after Gwen and I reviewed that several months back, and then to meet her in person and to hear how appreciative she was of that really does make me feel good. Mm-hmm. So, it does stroke my ego, but I think on a more profound level, I like to meet someone whose work I appreciate, especially when that person says that she appreciates the work we do.
Yeah, I agree. And I've had good interactions with people kind of outside of the show as well. We've had a couple dinners this week at least with Craig Yo and Tom Heinches and several other fans, comics fans, and those have been fun, and the kind of discussions we've gotten into there have been, I think, really interesting. You're local in a sense, so you stay with family, right? And so, but I've been staying at the hotel and go down to the lobby bar at the Westin Hotel and talk to people there. I've had long conversations there with Jeremy Whitley. Last night I was going to go to bed at about 10 o'clock after kind of taking a circuit through the art auction really quick and talking to a few people there. And as I was kind of taking a trip through the lobby to just kind of see if there's anybody to say bye to, I saw Tom Spurgeon, who I didn't even know was here, who had just arrived, in fact. We've had him on the show. And then he and I started chatting, and that lasted for a couple hours, and Rich Tomaso came by, and the three of us were talking for a while, and it just I didn't realize how late it was getting, and that, I was going another night without, full 8 hours again.
And plus you're going to have to be driving back home tonight.
Yeah, that's true too. Driving back home and hopefully getting home before the Battle of the Bastards starts on Game of Thrones tonight.
Oh, that's right. You're a big Game of Thrones person. You can always record it.
But internet being what it is.
Okay, so what kind of, speaking of Game of Thrones, what kind of cosplay really stands out to you this year? Because there seems to be more going on this year than last year.
Yeah, one of the things I often find interesting is in kind of the post HeroesCon experience is looking at that, like Instagram feeds and other photo collections that people took, and looking at the cosplay that we never get to see over here, that don't circulate really through the building so much as kind of stay in the cosplay area. So, but the stuff that's come by, there was a massive Hulkbuster Iron Man costume that was amazing, really well put together today. And so stuff like that, the stuff that's really kind of technically complicated, yet, I guess accurate, if you want to call it that looks real, is amazing to me. The skill and the hard work that goes into that is really impressive. How about you?
With me, one of the things that stands out for me in terms of cosplaying, and I'm trying to get my daughter's attention here.
Hey.
Zoe. Is I experienced a cosplayer that I wish I hadn't, This was an adult man who was dressed as, I believe it was Black Canary. And the reason I've called Zoe over, she was talking to a neighbor here, tabling next to us. I want you to describe this vision, because it disturbed me to the point that I don't even know that I can talk about it.
Okay, let's just say it was saggy and wrinkly. Everything. It was.
Okay, yeah, I think that goes a long way of explaining things. No, this is a guy who was dressed as Black Canary. He had extremely high heels. He had revealing buttocks. And that was right here in front of our table, so you missed it.
I saw it. I wasn't sitting at the table, but I saw the person as I was about to come back. Yeah, I mean, to me though, that's what I love about cosplay. Is one of the things I love about cosplay is maybe even if maybe the person's not got an accurate costume, there's an opportunity for people to express themselves in that way. I've seen quite a few kind of gender bending cosplay examples, both female cosplayers being male characters, which is probably the more common kind of crossover, but also like the Black Canary gentleman, male cosplayers in female costumes, and I'm fine with that. If that's something you want to do, and comic conventions are kind of a safe space where somebody can go and do that, then more power to them.
Yeah. I mean, I have nothing against it. It's just something that stood out.
Sure.
It was very, very noticeable. Unlike a lot of the other cosplayers, even the more revealing stuff. But yeah, that really stood out for me. But okay, yeah, there's a lot going on here this year in terms of cosplay compared to last year. Even though we did have a lot of cosplayers last year.
Yeah.
I guess another standout for me is finding all of those old kitchen sink Spirit reprints.
And I'm really jealous of that, because I was actually kind of looking for those, making a conscious effort to try to find those. So the fact that you found them and beat me to it, I'm really, and did it on Sunday, which means that I really, really dropped the ball on that. But yeah, that was a good find.
And I wasn't even looking.
Yeah,
I just happened to be passing by and casually looked through a bin and saw those.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so what is a good find that you've made here from one of the vendors?
I don't know.
I know you've had good sales.
Yeah. I found some good deals. I got a handful of Golden Age DC Western comics that I like to get, because I really, really like the art inside them. Those were comics that featured like Carmine Infantino and Gil Kane and Alex Toth before the advent of the Silver Age, where those artists were working largely in those kind of genre comics. And not just that, but artists like Infantino and Kane especially got to ink themselves in those stories, and so you get a kind of purer sense of their art. And so there's some really great stuff in there. Also stuff that DC's probably never going to reprint. We're never going to see like a DC Great Western Stories or a showcase edition of All-Star Western, or in DC Essential Western series, and yet their best artists worked on those comics. So even if I can find them that they're a little grubby, the covers aren't in great shape, but I can open them up and the pages are readable, I'm happy with that.
Yeah. But you were also selling some stuff too, the Suicide Squad.
Oh yeah. I dumped a bunch of my Harley Quinn and Suicide Squad comics in advance of the movie. So while they're hot,
dumping them in good time.
Yeah.
Well, I think this has been a really good HeroesCon, and I hope that listening to the segments that we've recorded, each of the 3 days sounds coherent when I go back and listen to them and edit them. I'm expecting that to be the case, and I hope listeners that you feel that listening to this week's episode where we record an installment, one of the 3 days of the con, makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that you enjoyed it.
Yep. Yeah, I hope people enjoyed it. And if you listen to this and you think, man, I wish I was there, then make the trip down to Charlotte next year for HeroesCon. It'll be again in the middle of June. Yeah.
Andy's checking the calendar.
June 16th to the 18th, 2017.
So about the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you like what we've talked about and you want to have a little nerd vacation, come down to HeroesCon.
And probably meet us in person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we hope to be here. So we'll see you here, we hope, next year.
Yep.
It was fun doing the recordings on the floor, especially since whenever we record something, we got more attention.
Yeah, that's right. It seemed like when we start recording, people then stop and take a look.
Exactly. And in fact, on Saturday we had Virginia was her name. We heard her a second ago, came up and actually talked with her. So not only did we get her attention, but she also signed up on our mailing list and talked with us for quite a bit.
Yeah. And she talked about what, as people who listen to know, that she talked about some of her favorite stuff.
That's right. So it was really fun. I've had a great time going to HeroesCon for the past 2 years, and I'd like to continue doing so.
Yes, me too.
Yes. So expect us to do something similar next year. But until then, we want to tell you that you should head over to the website of our sponsor, dcbservice.com. You'll find that those guys take care of all of your comics pre-ordering needs. You can't find a better place, and you can't find better discounts when it comes to comics. Then after you do get your comics there, get in touch with us and let us know the things that you're going to be reading. If you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, you'll find that you can leave us a message through SpeakPipe, which is fairly easy to use, unless you're adult. or you can call us over the telephone. Our phone number is 415-3-COMICS. That's 415-326-6427.
And if you want to call in and complain about being called adult or write to us, you can contact us via email. We are two guys at comicsalternative.com, or you can get a hold of us individually. I'm Andy at comicsalternative.com.
And I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com.
And you can also find us on Twitter, where we announce new content to the podcast as well as updates to our blog. So you can check out our Twitter feed at the number 2 guys with PhDs.
That's right. You can also find us other places in social media such as Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Google+, Goodreads, Pinterest, and YouTube. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can stream us on Stitcher. You can also listen to us on TuneIn and on Spotify. And if you're an Android user, you can listen to us on Google Play Music. But you can always find every single one of our episodes, as well as the reviews and the comics-related commentary that we post on our blog occasionally, and that is at the website, comicsalternative.com.
That's right, all the ways to get a hold of us and let us know how we're doing.
Yeah, and we had a great time at HeroesCon. We hope you had a great time listening to us have a great time, and we will be back next week with more fun.
That's right.
Until then, I'm Derek.
And I'm Andy. See ya.